Hey guys, welcome to another commentary done by Diggity up right in corner. We have Sterling starting as the white Terran bottom right in corner. We have Supperman, aka Superman, starting as the purple Protoss. Unfortunately for Supperman, I don't think he's going to be on. I just think Sterling is a much stronger player at this level. So we'll see how it plays out though. I'm also curious, I will be interested to see if any of these guys are playing what I'm noticing as the upcoming meta for Terran versus Protoss, which I think I'll talk about a little bit here. So if you've been watching recent ASL matches, let's actually talk about where the meta, where we got here from the, where we got, they were playing very close to each other. Supperman a little bit concerned with those comments. Let's talk about how we got here. So there's upgrade Terran, I'm gonna say got more or less figured out by Protoss players, where they started going either 3 base rapidly into 8 gate and having an overwhelming amount of troops to just crush the Terran player as he's moving out of his base, or occasionally they go 6 gate into a 4th nexus, at which point they then tack on a lot of the nexuses and just have a massive attack force to work with. By the way, we're seeing a pylon gateway in the main for Supperman. Very defensive posture here initially. Terran were trying to figure out a way around it. The common thing to do was to go either to 4, 5, or in some circumstances 6 factories in the mid game to deal with the glut of Protoss units. However, what has become the trend as of late is for Terran to actually open up 2 factory, but rather than going for 2 factory as a straight overwhelming trying to wipe your opponent out sort of play, it's 2 factory to get a higher vulture count out in the early game towards the purposes of slowing down that 3rd nexus. So just basically having enough vultures and mines out in the field to prevent your Protoss opponent from running you over. And I'm wondering actually if that's what will happen is Protoss, if they'll start opening up more 2 or 3 gate in the early games, noticing that Terran are playing very vulture heavy, because it's almost a race between the first, basically to the 2nd observer. You got to have that 1st observer covering your main for the vulture mines, and then the 2nd observer can start mine sweeping towards the natural expansion, at which point usually Terran has a siege tank and siege check up on the high ground. But the 2 factory play, delaying the 3rd, has played very, very well for Terran. From what I've noticed, this is at the ASL Pro level. I don't know if these guys are keen to that adjustment, but I will be interested if we see it from any of these guys, because it will be, if I see it here, be like, yeah, these guys are smart. And that is the adjustment. But that's what I've had eyes on, which is almost an adjustment on what Flash was doing. Flash was messing with the meta a little bit, although he was going very, very aggressive in the early game with all sorts of mix of mines and marines, and just aggressively going after the early Dragoon count to keep it mitigated, to keep Protoss feeling very uncomfortable and expanding. Supperman, by the way, getting scout off. 3rd Marine in construction. We have a factory alongside, so it looks like it's going to be a 3 Marine factory start, as has been customary these days. Speaking of common meta, range and Dragoons making their way out onto the map. And an SCV mid map. I'm not sure if the probe spotted it. I think the probe might have spotted it. It's returning. Dragoon and probe swapping places. Sterling's SCV holding mid map, and it looks like Supperman staging up to go ahead and grab an Nexus of his own after the initial Dragoon. We do have the command center opposite side. This attack force will beat that Dragoon if it opts out, but what's nice is if your Dragoon can get early damage on the Vulture, not quite able to do so, and it looks like the SCV is also going to be able to wander into the main to critically see that Cybernetics core spinning, and also get a good look at whether there's a 3rd pylon and things along those lines. Looks like a Marine died as the, oops, I couldn't get a selection on the Dragoon as the Dragoon pushed its way in. Sterling being very patient, keeping that Vulture out of position while he waits for the mines to research. Getting those first 3 mines can be a big, big bolster. Actually, I take it back. Is he going to push all the way in? Pushing into check, now going to go ahead and retreat. Needs to be very, very careful with that. So kind of an interesting situation. Oftentimes Protoss will draw this Dragoon back, but we've got a Dragoon sitting on the front, a bunker out just in case, maybe to deal with range in the Dragoon. It looks like the barracks actually going to get hit. This is interesting. The barracks is exposed. Okay, so yeah, it's going to lift off. Supperman's going to, sorry, Sterling going to draw that back. Vulture hanging out to go ahead and drop mines at the 3rd, by the way, for Sterling. And yeah, now that barracks drop full back and a little bit too far out there from Supperman. 1 hex in to go ahead and get that damage range. Natural expansion up both directions. So back to the mid game, I would say things are decently even. I like that mine placement from Sterling, just in case there's an aggressive run by of one form or another. Also going ahead and going for the mine fielding out on the front and Protoss Observatory here. So we got 2 gate and a robo to the north. Citadel of Aduna immediately to follow. That's interesting. So I am curious if we are going to see a delayed DT drop or if we're going to see some very rapid Zealot leg speed and some attack off that. I am leaning towards a delayed DT drop. We'll see if a shuttle gets built after this initial observer. Could be an interesting play. We do have initial siege tanks being built, Vulture Speed being built, second factory plopping down for Sterling. Supply block briefly for both players here. Around the 42, 45. Careful! Oh, that Dragoon got as lucky as I've seen a Dragoon get. Oh, he's getting lucky. No! Oh! Unbelievable. No! Okay, luck ran out. How did these Dragoons get out here? Okay, finally was wiped out. Where's the observer? Initial observer actually just headed straight to the base to go ahead and get initial scouting information for Supperman. We'll be keen to see the tank count. Mine's getting re-dropped along that edge. I actually lost track of where Dragoons were out in the field. There's the Templar archives. No shuttle though. So I wonder if this is just going to be a mine clear, an attempted DT press, and a hope that there's a lack of turrets or other detection. We do have a mine here, and a mine here though. Engineering bay is built. We do have a missile turret being dropped in the main. Academy being constructed as well, so there'll be multiple forms of detection. Mine does manage to get some damage on those Dragoons. Supperman having some trouble with his Dragoon discipline with the observers. The Vulture's coming back across, looking to assault, but Supperman was very patient and kept these 2 Dragoons at position to go ahead and cut that off. Pretty good macro both directions. Third gateway dropped. So never mind, it's going to be 2 base, very rapid 2 base Arbiter play rather than DT. So we're going to go up to 4 gate Arbiter and play the match from there from Supperman. Interesting. And now we're going for that. We got that 5 factory flood that is typical of, I would say, the just prior meta to this. Tanks already sieging up on the high ground just in case there was an assault because Sterling is missing information. He does have the comsat stations along the way. And for everything, Supperman's actually in a decent supply position. Looks like he has maneuvered to go ahead and grab his 3rd. It will be somewhat delayed if he's going to maintain production out of the 6 gateways and keep the Arbiter building along the way. Arbiter Tribunal up. This is just as comsat stations are completing. I want to see what the comsat is going to be from Sterling, if he's going to expend it. To whether he's going to, if he's going to find this tech is really the key. He's starting to stage up some forward territory to grab his 3rd, presumably. I wonder if he's going to go for the 12 o'clock or if he's going to go into his opponent there at the 3 o'clock. No comsat dropped as of yet. Letting Vultures go ahead and scout things out initially. An observer takes some damage and dies, but sees that forward positioning. And we have the Arbiter Tribunal up, no Arbiter queued up as of yet. Zealot leg speed on the way, and no 3rd base yet either. So it'll be a later than usual 3rd. Okay, there's the comsat. And Sterling sees that, I believe he got eyes on the Arbiter Tribunal in the midst of that. I'll be curious to see his reaction. Should know that there's not yet an Arbiter on the field, but let's see if he starts mining up a little bit more aggressively. He immediately dropped a starport, so potentially wanting to get science vessels out. Armory coming out later, which is typical with the 5 or 6 gateway play here. We are actually going up to, or sorry, it's 5 or 6 factory play. 5 factories already in production. I like that Sterling grabbing the low ground command center rather than being overly cautious with this, recognizing he has map control, that he's got a decent portion of tech. 3rd base coming online very slowly. Supperman checking the 12 o'clock location just in case. That it should give him the information of where the additional base, by the process of elimination, let him know where the additional base is. Sterling checking bottom left doing the same thing opposite corner just in case. Supperman playing a very defensive game. Recall is being upgraded, by the way, over stasis. My one concern with recall on Radion against this configuration is pretty quickly Sterling should be able to, once he gets that third base truly up and running, should be able to tack on some additional factories. And one problem with doing a recall is if you don't get enough massive damage done, sometimes what ends up happening is you end up recalling a large portion of your army that you actually need to help defend. Oh, mine blowing up on all sorts of probes there, by the way. Nice play there from Sterling. Good little raid and pushback. The probes now gathering in to the 3 o'clock. And Zealots getting picked off, and Dragoons being led into mine blasts. Arbiter overhead, but we don't have an observer alongside. Good movement here from Sterling, by the way. A probe trying to get here in the 6 o'clock, but the Dragoons... Oh, I was about to say the Dragoons just may be out of position for that probe to get sniped. Sterling pulling away last second. So now that this third base for Sterling is up in earnest, and the science vessel and +1 weapons are on the way, he can tack on additional troops. The supply count is only 10 different. And by the time Arbiter theoretically on the build order, by the time the Arbiter has the recall, if he recalls into this and wipes out the factory, we'll see if he has enough to defend his main on the follow-up. I guess that's what I'm wanting to kick in on. We also have stasis being upgraded in the midst of this. Vultures have found some ground. Going to wipe out a zealot. Actually there's only a cannon defending that third. Few mines being dropped, and that's drawing Supperman's army back to go ahead and deal with this. Some more mines getting triggered. Looks like that is going to get cleared out, but this is also delaying Supperman a bit, feeling wary, grabbing the 6 o'clock, and that's leaving him on 3 bases for an extended period of time. Supply counts are even. This isn't as bad as it would usually be because +1 weapons is not yet complete. We do have a dropship making its way out that could very easily create a lot of havoc there at Supperman's third. Now we're seeing the additional factories tacked on. And I want to see the Arbiter energy. It looks like Arbiter's there's the Arbiter. Does he have a stasis? Stasis would be a miracle here. With the 2 Arbiters there, Sterling wisely exiting. Third gas getting tacked on. The Arbiter could chase and stasis it. Could just hang out alongside. It looks like we might have a recall along the third. Sterling not in position to defend this, by the way. A bit out of position. The recall gets canceled. Oh, man, and Supperman misclicked. I think he accidentally did the recall in an unrecallable area, and that actually might have been a pretty decent drop. If you guys have not seen Tolbo on YouTube doing the exact same thing, look it up. That's the reference. But now Sterling he was in a strong position before, still in a pretty strong position, but Supperman not out of it yet. 6 o'clock base just coming online. Do we have a second armory for Sterling? Okay, we do have double upgrades running. And that is, it looks like +1 weapons finished. I missed the secondary drop. 4 kills on that siege tank. I'm not sure how many probes, but that's going to be an exiting of that base briefly. Supperman actually had a decent supply count, but doesn't have enough. Okay, now he's getting towards more of the probe count to spread across 4 bases. Sterling mining the absolute bejesus out of this nearby third, getting some mines to the north, also dropping the supply depots and missile turrets along the edge to make a drop on the sensitive areas a little bit more challenging. That sounds awkward when I say it that way. Sterling making his way out, but Supperman right there to jump on top of it. But a good EMP behind this didn't drain the... Okay, yeah, stasis lands. Only catches 3 siege tanks, but man, those siege tanks exposed to a lot of this army. Supperman taking heavy losses, but he was able to chew out a lot of siege tanks in the midst of that. And Sterling does not have a third machine shop down as yet, so it's going to be a minute before that siege tank count regrows. Sterling slow playing it, wants to go ahead and grab that 4 o'clock location. Sorry, the 4 o'clock to 12 o'clock location. And a few mines just hitting absolutely everything, by the way. Supperman starting to move bottom left, wants to clear that out so he has some territory. Do we have additional arbiters being constructed? We do have additional arbiters. So we got the 2 arbiters still active out in the field. I don't see a available recall for either of them yet. And the siege tank count, decent for Sterling as far as territory holding, but I don't think he's going to feel... Now he's got the 3rd machine shop and a lot of those siege tanks queued up. So might feel a little bit more favorable towards pushing in a moment here. Goliath ushering that arbiter back, catching the observer on exit. No EMP hitting any of this though. Supperman regathering, needs to find a target, is near 200 supply. Yeah, needs to find a breach point or a good place to drop a stasis, something along those lines. Is he gonna recall on this? Gets an half-hearted stasis here in the front, catches 2 Goliaths and a siege tank. That's honestly gonna provide more protection for the rear line of siege tanks in this defensive stance than anything. Sterling at max supply right this second, and Supperman still's not grabbed the bottom left-hand corner of the map, nor has he dropped a lot of gateways at that position. Trying to get a look at his gateway count. It looks like he is at 12 gateways at his main, but oftentimes in this situation where Terran's going up to 4 bases plus, you want to have additional territory grab bottom left already, and already some gateways there just in case he starts moving out onto the map. Speaking of moving out onto the map, here comes Sterling. +2 weapons, +1 armor. Arbiter wandering forward, able to get an okay stasis. Got mostly vultures and siege tanks, but it might be enough to keep Sterling locked back. Supperman cycling around the right-hand side of this army. It's unfortunately he doesn't have High Templar to Sidestorm because a lot of this is very bunched up. And unfortunately with the approach, the Zealot's getting absolutely wrecked. And the Dragoons having to evacuate because they're just completely exposed to the siege tank lines. Very good engagement there for Sterling. The Zealot's still wandering forward. At least able to clear mines, but not getting a lot else accomplished. Base is just starting to get established bottom left. Sterling spotting it. Once this stasis is complete, I'll be curious to see whether he decides to start attacking down the 6 o'clock bottom left, or if he's just going to go for the throttle maneuver towards the right. It looks like he is making his way bottom left. This creates a potential lane opportunity of an attack towards the middle. It looks like Sterling has spotted the Protoss army making its way middle and is flanking it. But this is giving Supperman a potentially good attack wall as those tanks are unsieged. And a great stasis opportunity. Man, the stasis misses though, and only catches the science vessel. He's still getting a lot of siege tanks out of that, however, but lost a lot of his army. And this is where having a glut of gateways is very, very important. Still a good amount of siege tanks on the ground. Not as many as I'm sure Sterling wanted, but still enough to hold territory and keep pushing into this army. Sterling doing a great job macroing, by the way. As these armies are getting decimated, it's like the number's not even dropping because he's keeping those factories so active here in the background. So really good macro on his part. Probes trying to transfer. They're going to get caught by these vultures. I don't think Supperman has a standing army right this second. And losing all sorts of probes as they're trying to make their way bottom left. Looks like the cannons are going to brush away what remains. A few units are sniped on the turn. Cannons doing what they can briefly before they're getting wiped out. The 6 o'clock base is very likely going to fall. And Sterling again drawing troops up, going for the middle attack route. Arbiter not quite in position to provide support, flying a little bit too far ahead. And vultures and a single siege tank going to be able to push back that lane. Sterling filling it in with mines as well to make sure he doesn't get caught across the edge. And it looks like Supperman, not able to, is hurting on resources because his main's mined out. His natural expansion's very thin. 6 o'clock base has been wiped out, and he didn't have the earlier established bottom left-hand bases. So the 3 o'clock base is more or less all that's running for him. He doesn't have enough macro to keep going, and recognizing that Sterling just has a very powerful economy and a very powerful army on the ground. Just going to GG right there. Sterling advances. Supperman is eliminated, but put up a really good fight, honestly. Kudos to him. Came out all, I believe, yeah, it was Supperman, came all the way out from Norway. So, dude's awesome. Sailed quite a way for this. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for listening.